"She's just the maid," Reagan told her mother, loud enough for Monica to hear. Monica West, who had spoon-fed Reagan's father through chemo and closed his eyes the night he died, kept wiping the counter. They called her Help. She was the witness, the executor, and the one he trusted most. By dawn, her name would be on the deed. Theirs would be on eviction notices. For years, she scrubbed their secrets off marble. Now she owned the estate, and every lie buried beneath its floors. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The first time Monica heard it, she was down on her knees polishing the imported quartz island, elbow deep in citrus-scented foam and dried pasta sauce. "She's just here to wipe counters," Reagan said, her voice carrying from the next room like it had been rehearsed. There was laughter after that, light, controlled, and just loud enough to be cruel. Her mother muttered something, too muffled to catch. Monica didn't flinch. She moved the rag in slow circles, letting the sting hit quietly in her chest, right behind the ribs, where all old humiliations go to rot. She'd been in this house for 3 years, 4 mornings a week, 8 a.m. sharp, through birthday parties, funerals, holidays, the pandemic. Even when the roads iced over and the Whitmores had escaped to Aspen, Monica showed up, unpacking their grocery delivery, watering the damn lemon tree in the foyer, but that didn't matter. Not to Reagan, not to any of them. From where she crouched beneath the island, Monica could see her reflection in the polished granite, distorted but clear enough to see the deep lines at the corners of her mouth and the brittle texture of her ponytail. Her gloves were frayed at the fingertips, one split seam exposing her thumb's knuckle. "She's just here to wipe counters." That wasn't even the worst thing Reagan had ever said, just the most precise. Monica stood slowly, back stiff from scrubbing, and wrung out the rag with practiced ease. She moved on to the sink, scrubbed it, dried it, and aligned the soap dispenser to face perfectly forward. Everything was silent now, just the low thrum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic ticking of the heirloom clock Mr. Whitmore had insisted she oil once a month. Mr. Whitmore. He would never have let Reagan speak like that, at least not where Monica could hear it. He was the only one in that house who had ever called her by name, asked about her daughter, tipped in cash even when she refused. And before he died, 3 weeks ago to the day, he'd told her in a voice thin with morphine and trust, "You'll know what to do when the time comes." Monica hadn't understood what he meant until last week, when the courier envelope arrived. She kept it hidden beneath the passenger seat of her car, a manila folder with his full name stamped on the flap. Inside, a copy of the will. Monica had read it twice, then once more just to be sure. She didn't tell anyone, not yet. She needed time to think, and more importantly, she needed to look. So she had started to inventory, not out of greed, out of strategy. She began at the edges, like a puzzle, taking mental notes. The second-floor guest bathroom with the cracked marble grout, the home office with unfiled property tax statements, the wine fridge with 4 unopened vintages labeled "Do Not Touch." She noted the attic's humidity levels, the thermostat history, the number of missing screws on the hallway banister. It wasn't envy, it was information. Because knowledge, Monica had learned, was better than anger. She moved through the rooms with quiet precision, gloves squeaking softly against polished surfaces, her eyes absorbing everything. Later that evening, as the sun melted down the snow outside, Monica rinsed her hands in the kitchen sink, watching the water swirl soap and fatigue down the drain. She packed up her tote, clicked off the lights, and stepped into her boots with the discipline of someone preparing for war. The house behind her was silent, cold. Before she closed the front door, she looked over her shoulder one last time at the gleaming granite countertop she had polished by hand. There was a streak, faint, almost invisible, cutting across the center of the island like a hairline crack in a statue's face. She didn't wipe it. Instead, she pulled the door shut gently, the lock clicking into place with a sound that didn't echo. But her expression had changed, and it would never go back. There were things Monica could never unhear. like the time Reagan's mother, Caroline, whispered sharply into the phone that she couldn't bear another charity gala with those Botox gargoyles just before stepping onto the back patio to host one, or when Reagan cried drunkenly into her ex's voicemail, begging him to take her back, promising she'd stop competing with dead girls. She'd heard the Whitmores argue over trust fund withdrawals, infidelities, and what to do about a pregnancy Reagan swore was handled. And all the while, Monica scrubbed, polished, vacuumed, invisible, but always in the room. They never lowered their voices. Not really. To them, Monica was a shadow in compression socks, the help, a fixture, not a witness. But she remembered it all. She remembered the scent of Caroline's spiced bourbon on the kitchen air whenever money came up, the slam of cabinet doors when Mr. Whitmore's patience wore thin, the way Reagan once handed her a blood-stained towel after slicing her hand on broken glass, never asking for help, just tossing it like garbage to be dealt with. That towel had told Monica everything she needed to know about Reagan, and still she'd kept her mouth shut. The first year she worked here, silence had been survival. But that was before the man of the house started confiding in her. It began with post-it notes left on the kitchen counter. Please lock back door after deliveries. Don't touch the wine fridge today. Reagan's birthday. Then came longer notes, grocery lists, weekend schedules, reminders that read more like quiet apologies. And then, one afternoon, after she'd found him struggling to change his own colostomy bag, he asked her to sit. They had tea. Actual tea, not the bagged kind. Loose leaf in a porcelain pot she didn't know they owned. My wife means well, he said, but she's never stayed long enough to see what care looks like. Monica hadn't answered, but she stayed until the pot ran dry. It was months later, when he knew he was dying, that he asked her to take care of everything. When it's time, he said, voice rough like gravel soaked in grief, I need someone I can trust. Someone who knows this house better than anyone. Someone who knows them. At the time, Monica thought he meant the cleaning, the bills, maybe the dog, if the dog outlived him. But the will said otherwise. Now, 3 weeks after his funeral, she stood in her apartment's dim bedroom, the yellow glow of a desk lamp lighting the corner of her modest, carefully ordered life. She pulled a manila envelope from her locked drawer and unfolded the papers inside. The legal seal shone faintly near the bottom. Not only was she named in the will, she was the trustee of the entire estate. It had been signed 6 months before his death. Witnessed. Filed. There was a clause, buried halfway down the second page. It was 1 line long, typed in the same font as everything else, but it might as well have been engraved in granite. In the event that my daughter, Reagan Whitmore, is deemed financially irresponsible, unstable, or in violation of standing estate conditions, I hereby defer all executorial power to Monica West. Monica read it 3 times. Reagan had no idea. She could barely read her own credit card statements without a personal assistant summarizing them first. That clause wasn't just a line in a document. It was a trap, and Reagan was already halfway into it. Monica walked to the window. Outside, snow dusted the edges of the parking lot like powdered sugar. She thought of Reagan's voice, mocking, wine-slick, sharp as the stem of a broken flute. She's just here to wipe counters. Not anymore. Monica turned back toward her desk, fingers brushing the edge of the will. She could confront her now. She could walk into that house tomorrow, drop the papers on their custom marble kitchen table, and watch the color drain from Caroline's face. But something in her resisted. This wasn't a fire to rush. This was something to build. And she wasn't done drawing the blueprint. The smell hit her before the music did. Candle wax, expensive hairspray, and the sugary musk of champagne spilled hours too early. Monica stood in the foyer of the Whitmore estate at 9:04 a.m., the same way she always did, coat off, gloves on, keys clipped to her waistband. She stepped carefully around the glittering trail of destruction. Heels kicked off near the stairs. A passed-out guy in a velvet blazer slumped against the hallway wall, one arm tucked under his head like a child. The kitchen counter was littered with stemless wine glasses, half-melted ice, and what looked like chocolate mousse smeared across the backsplash like war paint. She'd seen worse. But not in this house. Not when he was alive. In the distance, laughter shrilled from the backyard. Monica glanced through the glass doors. Reagan was holding court on the deck, barefoot, mimosa in hand, gesturing grandly to her hungover audience. "She'll be on the market by spring," Reagan said, motioning to the house like it was already a done deal, flipping it for double what Dad paid. "You know, upgrade the tile, reface the cabinets, maybe gut that weird little pantry. Should be easy." Someone asked what she'd do with the money. Reagan shrugged. "Europe, probably." "God, I need a break." Monica turned away from the window. She moved through the house with practiced quiet, collecting dishes, restoring cushions to their rightful alignment, wiping down tabletops sticky with Prosecco residue and negligence. She paused at the marble kitchen island, eyes narrowing at a wine stain creeping into the natural stone. She recognized the bottle, 2013 Barolo, Mr. Whitmore's. Cellared, counted. Monica had once resealed that slab herself after a cracked seam appeared near the sink. She had chosen the filler, matched the tone, buffed it until it vanished. That island knew her hands better than it knew Reagan's. Now Reagan was bragging about gutting it. Monica opened a drawer beneath the island. Tucked behind a box of batteries and rubber bands, exactly where she had placed it last week, was the envelope stamped in blue, Whitmore Estate Transfer Packet. She had begun assembling the title documentation the night after reading the will, quietly, thoroughly. Names, parcel IDs, death certificates. She had called the courthouse pretending to be an assistant for Ms. West, estate trustee, and no one questioned her. Upstairs, laughter echoed from the hallway. One of Reagan's friends had wandered into the master bath, shouting about the shower being bigger than her first studio apartment. Monica ignored it. Instead, her mind pulled backward, unspooling to a different day. One with no music, no laughter, just a slow hush of machines and the dull beep of declining vitals. It was late October. Mr. Whitmore had been too weak to sit up, so she helped him sip water through a straw. "Monica," he whispered, "if they fight you, don't argue. Just show the paper." She'd squeezed his hand. "I won't let you down," she had said, voice low, honest. He didn't reply, but he didn't need to. She had always been the one who cleaned up his family's messes. Now she would clean up the last one. Back in the present, Monica turned toward the sound of shattering glass. Reagan had dropped her mimosa. She stood barefoot, tipsy, staring down at the jagged remains like they'd betrayed her. "Someone get a towel," Reagan barked. No one moved. Monica already had one in hand. She watched silently as Reagan bent to blot the spill herself, blotting at the gold-flecked tile Monica had sealed last winter. Reagan rubbed at the surface with the heel of her palm, only smearing the stain deeper. Her voice pitched upward. "Ugh, it's ruined. This is why I need new everything." Monica folded the towel, left the room. That afternoon, a letter arrived at her apartment. She opened it at the kitchen table beside the file folder she had begun keeping under lock. The seal on the letter matched the one from the will. Inside, formal confirmation of her legal status, Monica West, trustee and executor of the Whitmore estate, full authority, effective immediately. She read it once, then again. Her hand didn't shake, but a smile, not of joy, not yet, but of control, crept across her face like slow light breaking through frost. Outside, snow started to fall again. Inside, she began filling out the final transfer form. And upstairs, Reagan still didn't know she was bragging in someone else's house. The locksmith arrived at 6:52 a.m., a quiet man named Hal, bundled in a flannel jacket, toolbox in hand. He didn't ask questions when Monica handed him the court-stamped authorization letter. He just nodded once, then got to work on the front door of the Whitmore estate as frost clung to the eaves and the sky turned from ink to ash. By 7:45, every lock, front, side, patio, even the garage keypad, was replaced. Monica stood just inside the foyer, the new keys in her palm, their teeth sharp and unfamiliar. She had never felt more exposed, or more certain. She moved slowly through the house, the silence now hers to command. Every footstep sounded different. No longer a visitor, no longer background noise. "Now," she echoed. The estate smelled like lemon oil and old perfume, left over from Reagan's party. Monica opened windows to let the ghosts out. At 10:03, she brewed coffee in the kitchen's oversized machine. She didn't ask permission. At 12:41, tires crunched up the driveway. Reagan's voice carried before she even reached the door. "What the actual hell?" 3 sharp knocks, then pounding. Monica walked to the front door and opened it just wide enough to show her calm. Reagan stood outside in full winter glam, camel coat, designer boots, phone in hand like a loaded weapon. Her cheeks were blotched with cold and rage. "You changed the locks?" she snapped. Monica held up the folder, already open to the notarized document bearing both Mr. Whitmore's signature and the court seal. She said nothing. "What is this?" Reagan demanded, grabbing the paper with a shaking hand. She scanned it fast, lip curling as she read. "This is a joke. You're a housekeeper, not a lawyer. I will have you arrested for trespassing." Monica tilted her head. "It's not trespassing when you're the trustee or the legal occupant." Reagan stared at her. A beat passed, then 2. "I'm calling my attorney," she said, voice too loud now, too bright. "You're out of your mind. If you think this holds up. My father was sick when he signed this. He was lucid and witnessed." Monica kept her voice level. 3 times. Reagan's hand trembled as she dialed. Monica turned and shut the door before the call even connected. She stood there for a long time, back against the wood, heart pounding in her ribs like fists on glass. Because yes, she was scared. She remembered another door, 10 years ago, when she had been the one pounding, crying, begging to be let back in after her husband locked her out with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and a purse. She remembered the smell of mold from sleeping in her car that first week, curled in the back seat at a truck stop off I-25 with her daughter's backpack as a pillow. She had climbed back from that, cleaned strangers' homes while going to night classes, lived in 3 apartments that never felt safe, saved every tip in an envelope marked "someday." And now, someday had arrived. She walked into the study, still painted in the color Reagan once called old man taupe. Behind the bookshelves, she knew which one. There was a panel. Decorative, seemingly fixed. She pressed 3 times at the edge and heard the soft click. The shelf swung out. Behind it, a safe, brass, hidden in plain sight. Monica knelt before it and typed the code, Mr. Whitmore's birthday, followed by Monica's hire date. 6 digits. She had known it from memory before she even thought to doubt herself. The lock clicked. Inside, a small stack of documents in a red folder, a velvet pouch, and 2 keys tied with a white ribbon. Monica didn't touch anything. Not yet. She stood slowly and looked around the room, the crown molding she had dusted 100 times, the photo of Mr. Whitmore fishing alone at dawn, the leather chair he died in. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just closed the panel and whispered, "Next step." And down the driveway, Reagan's shouting was growing more desperate. It wasn't the color that struck her. It was the weight. The red folder sat exactly where she'd left it inside the safe, neatly placed between the velvet pouch and a stack of bank records labeled in Mr. Whitmore's unmistakable handwriting. Monica carried it to the desk and set it down on the blotter like it might detonate. She peeled it open carefully. Inside, 3 manila subfolders, clipped and coded. One was labeled CW, Personal. Another, Cayman Holdings 2015. And the last, more ominously, RE:"Refinance Loan-Risk Disclosure." Monica's throat tightened. She unfolded the first. The printouts were meticulous, wire transfer records, property tax statements from a condo in Palm Beach she had never heard mentioned, and emails between Caroline Whitmore and a financial advisor using a masked email address. Monica's eyes tracked the numbers like they were live wires, offshore movements, asset concealments, a loan taken against the estate without board approval, then rerouted into a shadow LLC owned by someone named Weston Reed. Caroline's maiden name was Reed. Monica sat back, pulse low and steady like it always was when something heavy clicked into place. This wasn't just questionable bookkeeping, it was intentional obfuscation. If this got in front of a judge, not only would Reagan's contestation of the will collapse, it might drag her mother into a fraud investigation that had consequences beyond inheritance. She exhaled once, a long, quiet breath, then picked up her phone and called the one person who'd told her, years ago, "If you ever need help and it involves numbers, I'm your girl." Her name was Heather McCree, mid-50s, disbarred once, reinstated quietly, and better at financial crime law than most men in suits twice her price. By 2 p.m., Monica was in her office, a windowless room above a dry cleaner with a ceramic space heater buzzing like a bee. Heather flipped through the folder without saying a word for 5 minutes, then looked up. "Well," she said, "this makes your position bulletproof." Monica said nothing. "Look," Heather went on, tapping the Cayman Holdings form, "I know you probably don't want to use this, but if Reagan gets smart and tries to get cute in court, this doesn't just shut her down. It scorches the whole ground she's standing on." "I don't want to burn her," Monica said. "I want her gone." Heather shrugged. "Same result. Different temperature." By sundown, Monica was back at the estate. The red folder locked in her new office drawer. She changed into fleece-lined slippers and started boiling water for tea. The house had gone quiet again, almost peaceful. At 7:43 p.m., the alarm shrieked. Not the smoke detector, not a door chime, the full system. She froze for a half-second, then moved. She reached the hallway and saw the shadow first. Someone had jimmied the side window open. Glass cracked at the edge, a black boot halfway inside, then a scream, sharp and feral. It was Reagan. The alarm was blaring. Floodlights burst to life across the yard. Monica didn't care, didn't yell. She stepped back and let the system do what it was built for. Within 6 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled into the drive. Reagan was standing outside now, arms flailing, hair matted with snow. Her boots were mismatched. One officer gently steered her away from the window while the other approached the house. Monica met him at the porch, documents in hand. She was calm, composed. She tried to enter through the side without authorization, Monica said. "I'm the estate trustee. The locks were legally changed. Title's right here." The officer scanned the papers, his brow lifting in quiet recognition. He nodded once, then stepped aside to glance at his partner, who was now helping Reagan into the back of the car. As he turned back to Monica, his tone lowered. "This isn't her first time pulling this," he said quietly. "Not by a long shot." He handed her back the paperwork. "Call us if she tries again." Monica nodded. As the cruisers pulled away, red and blue light sweeping over the pristine snow, Monica stood alone in the doorway, the keys warm in her palm. And somewhere upstairs, the safe clicked shut. But the secrets inside it were just starting to open. The antique mirror was the first to go. Monica stood in the upstairs hallway as 2 movers wrapped the ornate gilt frame in foam padding and wheeled it toward the freight elevator she'd had installed through the side entrance, less for convenience than discretion. Reagan had once bragged about the mirror being a French original, probably Louis something. Monica knew from her late-night appraisal research that it was valuable, but not priceless. Just like everything else in this house, curated to project importance, hollow beneath the surface. One by one the items went. Reagan's jewelry case, Caroline's chaise, the Rothko print, not a real one, of course. Monica watched them load the truck from the upstairs window while sipping coffee from a chipped mug Mr. Whitmore had favored. It still had a faint T-ring in the bottom. The estate restructuring was underway. She'd contacted an estate attorney from Denver, someone Heather recommended, who reviewed Reagan's objections and laughed out loud. "No grounds," he said, thumbing through the packet Monica delivered in person. "Her claims are flimsier than a wet checkbook. And yours?" He tapped the red folder. "Yours is warproof." By the end of the week, Monica had liquidated 2 of the Whitmore vehicles and converted the basement into an office space where she could meet with realtors and appraisers without leaving the property. That night, her daughter called. It had been 2 years since they'd spoken, formally anyway. A few short exchanges around birthdays, some holiday cards. But the voice on the phone that night was warmer, steadier. "Mom," she said. I saw your name in the paper. Something about a house transfer. Is it true? Monica leaned against the counter, fingers resting on the cold marble. It's true. A pause. I always knew you'd land on your feet, her daughter said. They spoke for over an hour. About everything and nothing. About where Monica had been, how she'd kept things together. Her daughter mentioned she'd moved to Portland, worked in trauma counseling now. Monica listened, absorbing every syllable like it might vanish if she blinked too long. I'm proud of you, Monica said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm proud of you too, came the answer. It's about time you stopped cleaning up after everyone else. The next morning, Monica scrolled through her notifications and found her name tagged in a viral TikTok. The clip was lit with fake candlelight, heavy filters softening Reagan's rage. She stared into the camera with her trademark pout and said, Imagine being betrayed by someone you paid. My father's house was stolen by the cleaning lady. No joke. Just a thief in scrubs. But karma comes around. Stay tuned. The comments were vicious and divided. Some users defended Monica, others dragged her. Monica turned off her phone, let it vibrate itself into silence on the edge of the desk. Instead, she met with a renovation crew that afternoon to discuss plans for converting the guest wing into an art therapy room. No more marble for show. She wanted warmth, wood, clean lines, spaces people could breathe in. Later that evening, while clearing out the cedar closet in Reagan's childhood bedroom, Monica found a shoebox wedged behind a rack of old blazers. Inside, high school yearbooks, lipstick-smeared index cards, and journals. She opened one at random. Pink cover, Sharpie hearts drawn across the front. Inside were pages of entries scrawled in teenaged handwriting. One line on the first page stopped her cold. Monica smells like bleach and sadness. Another page. If I ever run away, I'll leave a rag on the counter so she has something to talk to. Monica closed the journal slowly, hands motionless. It didn't sting like it would have before. Because this wasn't new cruelty. It was old. Venom, finally exposed. Still, she stood there for a long time, holding the words that had once lived only in whispers, and now in ink. Outside, the estate lights flickered on by timer. Inside, Monica slid the journal onto the donation pile. She didn't need it, but she wasn't done collecting what had been hidden in this house. Not yet. The journal sat unopened on the therapist's coffee table. Between them, a box of tissues and two mismatched mugs, one chipped, one pristine. Monica stared at the pink cover with its peeling sticker letters like it had a pulse of its own. I didn't bring it to dissect her, Monica said, voice steady. I brought it to ask myself why it still got under my skin. Her therapist, Dana, nodded gently. Mid-60s, short silver curls, a cardigan that smelled faintly of lavender and age. She didn't take notes, just watched, waited. I know she was a kid when she wrote it, Monica added. But she wasn't writing about a stranger. She was writing about someone she saw every week, someone folding her laundry, cleaning her tub. Dana waited a beat, then asked, What part hurt the most? Monica's answer came without hesitation. Not the insult. The certainty Dana's brow lifted slightly. She didn't think of me as a person, Monica continued. She thought of me as furniture that occasionally made eye contact. That's what stayed with me. Not the bleach, not the rag. The fact that I lived in her house and she still managed to erase me. Silence fell between them, soft but taut. Dana finally asked, What do you want to do with the journal? I want to burn it, Monica said, surprising herself. But not yet. I think I need to understand what I'm actually burning. Back at the estate, a thick envelope was waiting in the mailbox. Monica sliced it open with a paring knife and unfolded the papers. A final offer. Typed neatly across the top. Proposed settlement agreement between Monica West and the Whitmore family, represented by legal counsel. It included a buyout sum, a request to cease all estate restructuring, and a clause, laughable in its desperation, requesting Monica's public silence. At the bottom, Reagan's signature, jagged and impatient. Monica sat at the desk and read it twice. then placed it on the floor beside her and pressed her foot down slowly, heel grinding into the center until the paper gave under her weight. The next day, she filed the eviction motions. Not just for Reagan, but for Caroline, too. By the end of the week, a legal notice had been taped to the door of the family's downtown condo, Monica's signature crisp and unapologetic on the last page. It was a cold morning when she returned to the estate alone, the kind of quiet that presses against your eardrums, the kind of light that doesn't bother warming the windows. She stepped into the living room barefoot, carrying a cup of coffee and nothing else. No to-do list, no phone, just air and silence and the soft ache of her own pulse. The rug beneath her feet had once been imported from Italy. Caroline had bragged about it endlessly. Now it simply felt like woven cotton, like something anyone could buy. Monica took a slow breath and looked around the room. The bay windows, the fireplace she had scrubbed with a toothbrush once, back when they'd hosted some senator's wife, the bookshelf where Mr. Whitmore had once left her a card on her birthday, unsigned but clearly from him. She closed her eyes for a moment and heard a voice from long ago. "You'll never be more than a girl who wipes counters." Her ex-husband, leaning in close, spitting it like prophecy. Monica opened her eyes and smiled. She walked slowly to the center of the room, set the coffee down, and turned in a slow, deliberate circle, letting the space see her. No one was home. No one had to be. She was the home now. A low knock startled her, gentle, not urgent. She opened the door to find a courier standing in the cold, holding another envelope. No name on the front, just a return address in Texas. Her smile faded. She took the envelope, fingers tightening around the seal as the door clicked shut behind her. She didn't open it, not yet. But something in her gut knew. This wasn't the end of Reagan. It was the beginning of something else. And Monica was ready. The courtroom smelled like recycled air and disinfectant. Nothing dramatic, no mahogany benches or marble columns, just off-white walls, flickering fluorescence, and the low shuffle of paper and breath. Monica sat still, her back straight, her hands folded around the handle of a leather satchel that had once belonged to Mr. Whitmore. She wore navy slacks, a soft gray blouse, and a pair of plain low heels. Unremarkable, anchored. Reagan, 3 rows ahead, was anything but. She wore courtroom black with a designer logo still visible under her blazer sleeve. Her face was tight with restraint, makeup flawless, lips overly glossed, eyes darting too fast. She kept whispering to her lawyer, a thin man with a receding hairline and the jittery energy of someone who'd prepared the wrong script. The judge, a woman in her 60s, clear-eyed and brisk, called the session to order. Monica's attorney, Heather, stood first, calm, surgical. "We submit into evidence the following documents," she said, lifting a stack as she walked toward the bench. "A series of letters from the late Mr. Whitmore indicating intent to transfer estate authority to my client, Monica West." The bailiff took them. The judge scanned a few pages, brow raised. Heather continued, "Additionally, attached are notarized health records confirming Mr. Whitmore's full mental clarity during the signing. And finally, 2 video clips recorded within 3 months of his passing, wherein he refers to Ms. West as, quote, the only one I trust to keep the house standing." A murmur rose. Even Reagan's lawyer shifted. The judge looked over her glasses. "Is the defense challenging the legitimacy of these?" Reagan's lawyer cleared his throat. "Yes, Your Honor. We believe Ms. West may have unduly influenced Mr. Whitmore, taken advantage of his condition. There is a concern that affection may have been misconstrued as manipulation." Monica didn't flinch, but her fingers curled just slightly around the edge of the bench. The judge tilted her head. "Are you alleging seduction?" Reagan stood suddenly. "Yes, she flirted with him for years. She acted like a nurse, but she was always there, always in his space." The judge held up a palm. "Sit down, Ms. Whitmore." "No, he was sick. He wasn't thinking clearly. She's a housekeeper, not family." "Ms. Whitmore." The judge's voice was louder now. "That's enough." Heather stood again, slow and deliberate. "Your Honor, this is character assassination without evidence. There's no proof of coercion, no claims of abuse, only signed documentation, video testimony, and consistent estate management records that align with my client's conduct. The judge nodded. Sustained. Reagan's lawyer whispered something frantic, but she waved him off, red blotches rising under her makeup. Heather returned to Monica's side, leaned down and whispered, "Just hold your breath. This is almost over." Minutes passed. The judge flipped pages, scanned the monitor showing the video still of Mr. Whitmore, gray, smiling faintly, his voice clear even in pixelated pause. "I've reviewed the materials," the judge finally said, "and I see no evidence of coercion. What I do see is due diligence, pre-planning, and a legally binding designation of authority. Monica West's trusteeship is affirmed." Reagan gasped, as if slapped. Her lawyer closed his eyes. "In addition," the judge continued, "this court grants Ms. West full execution rights over all Whitmore estate assets, real, financial, and residual. Further contestation must present new substantial evidence, otherwise this matter is closed." The gavel didn't need to slam. Her tone was enough. The courtroom buzzed to life. Heather whispered something triumphant. Monica didn't hear it. She stood slowly, turned toward Reagan, who sat slumped now, mouth slightly open, disbelief softening into a kind of vacant panic, and met her gaze. No gloating, no pity, just a stare like stone, like someone who'd waited a decade for this silence and didn't need to speak over it now. Monica walked out before Reagan could follow. Outside, the cold was sharp, real, clean. She stood for a long moment on the courthouse steps, chin lifted against the wind. Then her phone buzzed. One message, from an unknown number. "Texas doesn't stay buried forever." Monica stared at it, and smiled, thin and steady. Let them dig. She had already started building. The first tire went flat 2 days after the verdict. The second followed the next morning, cleanly slit down the inner seam. Monica found it in the grocery store parking lot, just after sunrise, her coffee still too hot to drink. No note, no witnesses, just a slow hiss of air and silence heavy enough to suggest warning. She didn't call anyone. She took photos, filed a police report, paid in cash for replacements. By Friday, the Yelp page for her cleaning service had been flooded with 1-star reviews. "Thief in uniform. Scammed my grandmother. Breaks things and steals your husband." Some had profile pictures that didn't even match the names. One review claimed Monica was too lazy to show up, posted the same day she'd been in court. She stared at the screen, jaw tight, then screenshot everything, downloaded the metadata, logged it in a folder marked C.W. Caroline Whitmore. That evening, she rang the neighbor's bell. Mr. Paxton, retired sheriff with a doorbell camera and a habit of watching the street from behind his blinds. "Check this out," he said before she could even finish asking. The footage was grainy but damning. Caroline in sunglasses, face too polished for errand running, crouched beside Monica's Honda with something in her hand. A swipe, a pause, then her glancing up, right into the camera, before strolling off like she hadn't just committed petty sabotage in broad daylight. Monica watched it twice, then once more, slower. "Want me to send this to my guys?" Mr. Paxton asked, voice low. "No," Monica said. "Not yet." The next morning, a note slid under her office door. "We should talk. For your sake." No signature. The handwriting was elegant, practiced, familiar. They met in the sunroom of the Whitmore family's downtown condo, now half empty, boxes packed tight in every corner like the last act of a failed play. Caroline poured herself tea. No offer made. She wore navy cashmere, a pearl brooch, and the brittle confidence of someone clinging to the last rung of old money dignity. "I know what you think you've won," she said, not even looking up. Monica said nothing. "But let's be honest, you don't want the noise, the mess, the attention, this house, this family. It will always be seen as ours, no matter what the paperwork says." She reached into her clutch and pulled out an envelope, thick, tidy, labeled in embossed gold, "Private settlement. $250,000, Caroline said, sliding it across the table. "Tax-free. Walk away. Let us rebuild privately. You don't have to clean anymore." Monica looked at the envelope. then back at her. She reached into her coat pocket and removed a small device, barely larger than a thumb drive. Clicked it once. The red light blinked. "Say that again," Monica said, voice soft. Caroline's expression cracked, just slightly. "Excuse me?" "I need it for my records," Monica said. "Say it again." Caroline stood abruptly, hand recoiling from the envelope like it burned. "You'll regret this," she snapped. "We tried to give you an out." "I'm not looking for one," Monica replied, rising slowly. "I lived in the margins long enough. This is my address now." She walked out before Caroline could answer, the recording safe in her coat, the envelope untouched on the glass table. That night, Monica sat at her desk and emailed the file to 3 places: her lawyer, her backup drive, and her daughter. No subject, just the file. She stared at the screen until it blinked into confirmation. Then she leaned back, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the wind scraping against the windows like memory. The house was hers. The silence was earned. But she knew now, quiet didn't mean safe. Not yet. Down the hall, the red folder waited. And inside it, something else she hadn't touched. Not yet. But she would. Because Caroline had chosen sabotage. Reagan had chosen slander. And Monica? She was still choosing the long game. Tomorrow she'd open the velvet pouch. And whatever was inside, she'd know exactly what to do. The velvet pouch wasn't heavy, but it carried weight. Monica unfolded it slowly on the kitchen island, her island now, and revealed 2 antique keys, a signet ring, and a folded slip of stationery marked in Mr. Whitmore's hand. For what comes next? She didn't pause to wonder. By noon, she was at the county records office, sitting across from a clerk with tired eyes and a nameplate that read, Dale. Her fingers moved over the documents with unshakable clarity. Transfer of deed, ownership filings, inheritance certifications. Dale looked up at her twice with a flicker of doubt. She met each glance with a firm nod and a single line. "I'm the trustee. Everything's in order." And it was. By the end of the day, Monica West owned it all. The estate, the downtown condo, the vacation lot in Crested Butte no one had used in 6 years, the accounts, the holdings, every last ornamental piece of Reagan's imagined empire. By the end of the week, she'd sold Reagan's leased Range Rover to a private buyer, cash sale, market value. The paintings went next. Not originals, of course, but the kind with enough pretension to fetch thousands if you found the right kind of collector in Denver's West End. The jewelry was appraised, liquidated, logged for tax purposes. None of it felt vindictive, just necessary, just math. By Saturday, the Whitmore estate taxes were fully covered. 0 debt, 0 liability, every receipt archived. Monica sat at her new desk, no longer tucked into the basement but installed in the sunlit parlor where Caroline once hosted wine tastings. She ran her fingers across the embossed edge of a manila folder that now bore her name alone. A brass nameplate sat beside her laptop, Monica West, Director, Haven and Hearth Foundation. The nonprofit had taken shape fast. Mr. Whitmore's name attached to a cause meant automatic traction. Domestic violence recovery, financial literacy, legal navigation for women starting over. She didn't want her story to be the blueprint, but she knew the terrain too well to let others walk it alone. The foundation's first official act, converting the guest house into a transitional home. Clean walls, sturdy locks, no marble, no granite, just warmth and beds and a stocked fridge. That night, Monica sent one email. The subject line, Transfer complete. The message was a single sentence. Attached are the closing documents per final settlement terms. She didn't bother signing off. Reagan's reply came less than an hour later. No greeting, just a line in bold. "You'll regret this. I know what you did in Texas." Monica stared at the screen. Her breath didn't catch, but her spine stiffened. Texas, a word like a bruise she hadn't touched in years. She clicked open the message. No attachments, no further explanation, just the sentence, laced with something more venomous than anger. It wasn't a bluff, it was bait. Monica closed the laptop, slowly, quietly, then reached for a box beneath the desk. an old file crate she hadn't opened in years. Her daughter had once begged her to throw it away, but she never could. Inside, photocopies of restraining orders, sealed police reports, a grainy photo of a burned apartment building. Her hands hovered. She didn't touch anything yet. Instead, she turned to the window. The estate bathed in soft dusk, porch light glowing amber, frost threading across the glass like veins. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. But she was alert. She knew how people like Reagan moved. Lateral, loud, slippery, always reaching backwards when they couldn't push forward. Monica had been preparing for this. She reached for her phone and opened her contacts. One name stood alone under the label, Texas, legal. She hit call. As the line rang, she whispered to herself, half prayer, half reminder, no one erases me, not again. And somewhere across town, Reagan smiled into her wineglass, thinking she'd found the crack. But Monica was already pouring the cement. The news broke on a Monday. Not national, just local enough to sting. A gossip site wrapped in civic branding. The headline read, Trustees Troubled Past, Monica West Tied to Sealed Texas Case. No specifics, no details, just suggestion and shadows. But it was enough. By Tuesday, 2 corporate sponsors pulled out of Haven and Hearth's launch gala. By Thursday, a board member requested an emergency vote to preserve public trust. And by Friday morning, someone had scrawled "liar in designer shoes" across the nonprofit's mailbox in red Sharpie. Monica stood in front of the vandalized box with a calm face and clenched jaw. The wind whipped her coat hem around her calves. She didn't take a photo. She didn't clean it off. She simply turned and went back inside. In the office, she unlocked the crate under her desk, the one with her past folded tight inside. Inside, she found the file marked in faded blue ink, Incident number 0814, Collier County, Texas. The edges were warped from old humidity. She pulled the records out, one by one. It had started with a phone call in 2009. She had just tried to leave. Her ex, Alan, showed up outside her apartment with a crowbar and a bottle of lighter fluid. She made it out through the back stairs while he set fire to the storage room below. He'd been arrested, charged, but not convicted. The deal had been made before she could even catch her breath. No contact for 5 years, case sealed, record buried. At the time, it had felt like mercy. Now it was ammunition in the wrong hands. Her phone rang. It was her daughter. "I saw the article," she said without preamble. "You okay?" "Fine," Monica answered, too quickly. "I'm flying in," her daughter said. "You're not doing this alone." Monica didn't argue. That weekend, they flew together to Austin, back to the courthouse where the file had once lived in a manila cabinet, before it was locked in a vault and buried under bureaucracy. But she knew the right words to say now. She had legal access through a nonprofit license and her own affidavit. They retrieved 3 documents: the arrest record, the original statement she gave under fluorescent light, and a crime scene photo, smoke curling out of a cracked basement window, her daughter's pink raincoat visible in the foreground where she'd dropped it running. Monica stared at the image for a long time. "This is who I was," she said aloud, more to herself than to anyone else. "But it's not a weakness. It's a receipt." Back in Colorado, the backlash was spreading. Anonymous emails, lost donors, a local anchor requesting comment before the narrative spins out of control. Her board met in secret. A vote loomed. Heather, her attorney, called with one question: "Do you want to bury this or own it?" Monica didn't hesitate. Both. 2 days later, she walked into a press conference. Not grand, just a rented meeting room at the local community center. Folding chairs, 2 microphones, no podium. She wore the same gray blouse from court. No makeup, no notes. "My name is Monica West," she began. "I was once a woman trapped in a life I didn't choose. In 2009, I survived an attempted arson by a man I trusted. The record was sealed not to protect him, but to protect me and my daughter while we rebuilt." She paused. Let silence fill the room. "I am not ashamed of surviving. I am not ashamed of rebuilding. I am not ashamed of protecting others from the same silence I lived through." There were no follow-up questions, only stillness. And then, a single clap. From the back. And then more. It wasn't thunderous, but it was real. That night, Monica returned home. Her inbox flooded. Former donors retracted withdrawals. 3 women sent handwritten letters thanking her. Her daughter curled up on the couch beside her, head on her shoulder, quiet. "You think she'll stop?" her daughter asked. "Reagan?" Monica shook her head. "Number, she's still playing checkers." She looked down at the sealed box beside the couch, the one now labeled "Next Move," because Monica wasn't playing defense anymore. She was setting the board, and the queen was staying in play. The first time Monica told her full story, it was into a microphone clipped to a lapel she'd ironed herself. No press crew, no stylists, just a panel event at a small Denver library, part of a survivor storytelling series hosted by a coalition of shelters. Her name wasn't even on the flyer, but the video someone took, just an intern with a phone shaky at the edges, was posted online that night. By morning, it had over 30,000 views. By evening, it had 100,000. In the video, Monica stood behind a podium in front of a faded American flag and a stained glass window. "I was 19 when I married him," she said, voice steady but not flat. 26 when he told me I'd be nothing without him. 28 when he set fire to the apartment after I left. 30 before I stopped whispering the word abuse. 31 when I learned how to disappear. And 32 when I decided not to. She paused. "My daughter and I slept in a car that first week. I folded other people's towels, cleaned their bathtubs, taught myself spreadsheets at night. I didn't climb, I crawled, and when I got to the Whitmores, I told myself, just survive." Another pause. "And now I'm done surviving, I'm building." Her words weren't rehearsed, they were remembered, and people listened. By the third day, Haven and Hearth's website crashed from traffic. Donors sent apologies with checks. Survivors sent letters. And one high school girl in Vermont sent a typed poem that began, "You mopped floors but carried storms." Reagan tried to counter. She went on a podcast, sniffed dramatically, claimed Monica was always looking for sympathy, accused her of using victimhood as a brand. The clip was ripped apart online within hours. The comments turned fast. "This woman just lost a house she didn't earn and now she's bitter. Monica didn't steal, she survived. Reagan, stop embarrassing yourself. Spoiled rich girl energy. Sit down, glitter Barbie." The nail in the coffin came 4 days later. It wasn't Monica, it was her daughter. She published a blog post titled, "My Mom is Not the Help, She's the Hero." It opened with a memory. Monica hiding their only $20 bill in her shoe so her ex couldn't find it. Then walking to a night class in borrowed sneakers. It told the story of how Monica had kept food in the glove box, how she used paper towels as diapers when they ran out, how she taught her daughter how to balance a checkbook in the back seat of a 2004 Corolla. She scrubbed floors while repeating terms from a business textbook. She sat through abusive silences and made sandwiches from gas station bread. "She's the reason I'm a counselor. She's the reason I know what strength looks like. It looks like her hands." The post went viral. Within 48 hours, it was featured on Good Morning America, The Cut, and PBS NewsHour. A week later, Monica received an invitation. National Women's Equity Summit, keynote speaker request. She read the subject line 3 times before opening the email. She forwarded it to her daughter with no caption. Her daughter just replied with one emoji, crown. The morning of the summit, Monica stood at the edge of the green room in a navy dress and black flats. No pearls, no designer anything. Just the same steady posture that had carried her through courts, kitchens, and chaos. A volunteer peeked in. "You're on in 5. Monica nodded. Her reflection in the mirror looked calm. But it wasn't the mirror she trusted anymore. It was the crowd waiting outside. She could hear them, muffled applause, low murmurs. But she also heard something else beneath it. Not just support, expectation. This time, they weren't clapping because she survived. They were clapping because she refused to shrink. As she stepped toward the stage, phone buzzing once more in her coat pocket, she didn't check it. Because now, she didn't need to read the headlines. She was the headline, and Reagan? She was still playing PR, but the country had already chosen their story, and their storyteller. Monica stepped into the light. The moving truck pulled out of the Whitmore condo at 6:17 a.m. Monica didn't watch it go. She just noted the time in her planner like she would any other routine exit, quiet, final, unremarkable. The last Whitmore belonging had been hauled off by a company that didn't ask questions. No press, no ceremony, just 2 sets of forwarding addresses, a P.O. box in Scottsdale for Caroline, and a Florida apartment complex Reagan had misspelled on her own paperwork. Disgraced, broke, legally gagged. They weren't exiled, they were finished. That afternoon, Monica stood in a small cemetery on the edge of town. She didn't bring flowers, just a copy of the stamped court decision in a clear folder and the leather satchel Mr. Whitmore had once insisted she keep. The headstone was modest. Samuel Whitmore, 1949 to 2024. Steward, not king. She knelt, brushed a leaf from the corner, and placed the folder gently at the base. "You asked me to take care of it," she murmured. "I did." The wind tugged lightly at her coat. A crow called in the distance. It was the kind of day she would have once spent scrubbing mud from marble tiles or hand-washing antique rugs. Now the estate echoed with a different rhythm. By the end of the month, construction was complete. The guest wing had been fully converted into a transitional shelter. Warm pine floors replaced cold porcelain. Lockable wardrobes stood where once there'd been walk-in closets lined with furs. The chandelier had come down, replaced by warm can lighting and a skylight that filtered dawn into the main hall. The new nameplate above the door read, "Haven and Hearth, a home for starting over." Monica's daughter moved in that weekend to help co-manage. She took the top room in the East Wing and filled it with books, forms, and a therapy chair someone had donated from Boulder. And Olivia, one of Monica's old cleaning colleagues from her agency days, became her first full-time employee. She arrived with a modest suitcase and a guarded expression, but Monica met her at the door with a fresh set of keys and a steady voice. "No one here wipes counters," she said. "We build futures." Olivia smiled for the first time in weeks. It wasn't press-worthy, but it was holy. On Friday morning, as Monica filed invoices in her new office, a manila envelope was delivered by hand. No return address, no markings except one embossed phrase in gold: Whitmore Holdings, internal archive transfer. Her heart ticked faster. Inside, a slim set of documents, a notarized signature, a date 6 months before Mr. Whitmore died, a second will, different from the one that named her estate trustee. This one was simpler. One clause, one signature. In the event that my personal shares in Whitmore Holdings, LLC remain unallocated at the time of my passing, I hereby bequeath full and sole ownership to Monica West, whose stewardship, integrity, and insight are beyond contestation. Her fingers didn't tremble, but the paper felt like it vibrated under her hands. His business shares, the company, the voting rights, the inheritance Caroline always thought would default to her name out of habit. But no one had known this existed. No one but him. A post-it had been stuck to the back of the final page. Familiar ink. 4 words. "You earned this quietly." Monica sat back in the chair. Sunlight filtered across the wood floor. Olivia's laughter echoed faintly from the hall. Somewhere upstairs, her daughter was leading a trauma intake session with a woman just days out of a courthouse shelter. The world outside still churned with noise, politics, weather, stories spinning half-true. But in here, things were whole, complete. Monica stared down at the signature again, his looping scrawl, unmistakable, and let the realization land like a soft snowfall. She wasn't just the trustee anymore. She wasn't just the survivor, or the speaker, or the face of someone else's redemption arc. She was the owner. And for the first time in her life, she didn't owe the silence to anyone. But she knew it was her sharpest weapon. Because while Reagan spun rumors and Caroline counted enemies, Monica built empires with whispers, and now she had a company to match the house. Tomorrow she'd notify the board. Tonight, she'd sleep with the doors unlocked. The office was unassuming. 2 stories of brick and tempered glass nestled between a tire shop and a medical supply wholesaler on the edge of an industrial district. It didn't look like power, it looked like paperwork, which, as Monica had learned, was often the same thing. Whitmore Packaging had a footprint in 3 states and a reputation for dependability. Nothing flashy, just efficient, profitable, boring in the way only good businesses are. Monica sat at the corner desk of her new regional headquarters, reviewing quarterly figures and vendor contracts, her name now on every header. The staff didn't know her history. They didn't need to. She introduced herself as the new owner, rolled up her sleeves and asked to see the logistics reports. No pearls, no drama, just numbers, just work, and it suited her. On Monday morning, her assistant, a 28-year-old former military clerk named Jamie, stepped into her office holding a clipboard. "End-of-month intake from the staffing agency," Jamie said. "We're looking to fill 2 roles in procurement. Thought I'd flag this one?" Monica didn't look up immediately. "What's special about it?" Jamie hesitated. "It's weird. You'll see." She handed over the clipboard. Monica flipped through the paper stack, basic resumes mostly typo-riddled and vague, until she hit the one clipped with a neon pink tab. Her breath didn't catch. Her pulse didn't spike. She just read the name. Reagan Whitmore Bachelor's Degree, incomplete. Previous title, Brand Development Advisor. Most recent employment, freelance strategy and lifestyle consulting. Monica stared at the header for a moment too long. Jamie hovered. "You want me to flag her for interview?" A silence bloomed in the room. Gentle, dense. Monica leaned back in her chair. The sunlight was slanting in from the west window, casting lines across the desk. Reagan's resume looked like it had been inflated through gritted teeth, padded, deflective, wrapped in entitlement even when reduced to bullet points. She turned the page over. The back was blank. So she picked up a red pen, same brand she used for board meeting notes, and uncapped it with a slow twist. On the center of the page, she wrote a single line in small, deliberate cursive. Not a fit for this culture. She capped the pen. Jamie blinked. "Want me to shred it?" "No," Monica said quietly. "File it." "Just file it?" Monica gave a small smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Legacy deserves a paper trail." Jamie nodded and left the room, confused but obedient. Monica turned back to the window. Outside, 2 forklifts moved pallets in practiced symmetry. A man with a clipboard laughed into a walkie-talkie. A woman adjusted a hard hat while training a new hire on the loading software Monica had approved last week. The business was running, the future was breathing, and the past? It was trying to re-enter through the side door. She wouldn't let it, because legacy wasn't something you inherited. It was something you wrote with intention, and for the first time, Monica was the one writing it in ink. Downstairs, the shredders whirred to life for the usual batch of rejected resumes. Reagan's file wasn't among them. It went into the cabinet marked Personnel Declined. Top drawer, center slot, right where it could be found if anyone ever needed a reminder of what entitlement looked like when it begged. And tomorrow, Monica would walk the factory floor, talk margins, and build a future made not of rumors, or names, or bloodlines, but of choices, quiet, firm, and final, just like hers. The house smelled like lemon polish and quiet, not the sterile quiet of grief or the heavy hush of fear, but the kind that follows completion, the kind that lives in finished pages and freshly painted walls. Monica walked barefoot through the sunlit foyer, a folded brochure in one hand, humming under her breath, half melody, half muscle memory. The estate no longer echoed with footsteps that didn't belong. Now it held voices, soft, earnest ones. Upstairs, a trio of girls no older than 20 were laughing about shared closet space. In the kitchen, 2 women compared grocery lists and pasta preferences. And down the back hall, Monica's daughter was peeling protective film off the new therapy wing's welcome plaque, brushed gold, elegantly mounted. Monica paused beside her. "You centered it?" Her daughter nodded. "Perfectly." They looked at the engraving together. Haven and Hearth Foundation, in honor of the ones who never stopped rebuilding. "Ready for the tour?" her daughter asked. Monica nodded once, the weight of the moment moving beneath her ribs like a tide. The women gathered slowly, some hesitant, some excited. 5 new residents, each carrying more than the bags in their hands. Monica led them through the estate like it was a place she'd only recently stopped dusting, because in a way it was. She showed them the rooms with the skylight, the quiet study nook, the communal pantry stocked with more than canned beans. "This is your space," she said, opening a door to what had once been Caroline's sewing lounge. "There are no locks between your voices and mine, only doors you can close when you need to." At the end of the hallway, Monica slowed. Her office still held the leather satchel from Mr. Whitmore and a single framed photo on the desk, him, laughing at something off-camera, tie askew. The man she once cleaned around, the man who saw her. She reached toward the frame and whispered, "I kept my promise." Later, after the tour, after handshakes and shy thank yous, Monica slipped back into the kitchen. The room had changed. The marble had stayed, but the chandeliers were replaced with warm pendant lights. The cold was gone from it. It breathed now. She ran a damp cloth across the counter. Just once. Slow, deliberate, not because it was dirty, but because her body still remembered what it meant to wipe. Something clean. Her daughter entered behind her and leaned in the doorway. "You didn't have to do that." Monica smiled. "I know." She folded the cloth in thirds and tucked it into a drawer. The day passed like that, peacefully. But when evening came and the house quieted, Monica stood again in the foyer, watching the light disappear through the tall windows. The house had been a battlefield, then a war zone. Now it was a shelter. Not just for others, for her too. She reached for the light switch, but paused, her reflection caught in the glass, still quiet and whole. And then she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else, "She thought I was just here to clean." Her hand lowered. "She forgot I know how to close." The lights dimmed behind her, and the house stood, silent, strong, and hers.